Don't give me the hands up. It's 6 o'clock. Let's get started. Oh. Now I'm going to call the regular meeting of the Roswell City Council for July 11th, 2019 to order. Ms. Call, will you please call the roll?
Councillor Henderson is absent. Councillor Oropesa.
Here.
Councillor Foster.
Here.
Councillor Grant is absent. Councillor Robeck.
Here.
Councillor Best.
Here.
Councillor Moore. Here. Councillor Peterson.
Here.
Councillor Stubbs.
Here.
Councillor Sanchez.
Here.
Mayor Kintai.
Present.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. At this time, I'll ask for everyone please stand while Councillor Peterson leads us in the Pledge of Allegiance and Councillor Best does the invocation. Councillor Peterson. Councillor Stubbs.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to approve the agenda for the July 11th, 2019 regular city council meeting to include, can you hear me? I can't hear myself. To also include the 2 awards. There's an MOU, an RFP, the 3 RIAC leases, and the 11 resolutions as approved.
I have a motion by Councillor Stubbs. Councillor, will you activate your motions button on your box?
No, my assistant has to do that for me.
Okay, and then I have a second by Councillor Peterson to approve the agenda and other associated items as presented. Any discussion or debate, councilors? Hearing none, I will ask for a voice vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. Hearing none, seeing none, passes 8-0. Thank you. First item up is a presentation. Announcements. I apologize. I did want to briefly mention to the council that on the census issues and the upcoming census next year, I have had the pleasure of working with Mr. Marcus Nava of the Hispano Chamber of Commerce. Mr. Nava has been extremely helpful, very professional, and I'm looking forward to providing more detailed information to the council at a future date. We're having follow-up meetings, and I'm looking forward to some very important and very useful information. On that note, then I will turn it over to Ms. Juanita Jennings. Ms. Jennings.
Hello.
There we
Yes,
go.
there you are.
All right, sorry about that. Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Tonight, I'm here to present to you some awardees. Last month, we recognized state champions for sports, and we failed to mention a couple of others that were brought to our attention. And so tonight, I'm here to introduce you electronically to Gateway Christian School Track and Field 2019 champions. Courtney Gores, she achieved the New Mexico Class A state record in the 300-meter hurdles, as well as Hannah Lilly, who ran the 1,600-meter, winning first place in the event. These ladies could not be with us tonight, but we also had the girls relay team, which is a 1,600-meter relay team of Hannah Lilly, Kaylee Smith, Courtney Gores, and Sarah Lilly, who also took first place with the Class A state record time of 4 minutes and 27.34 seconds, which broke the old state record. So we just wanted to congratulate them and recognize them at a city council meeting.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. That's pretty impressive stuff there.
Yes, very fast.
All right. All right, next up, item number 4. Counselor Stubbs.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is at the recommendation of the Legal Committee. I move to hold a public hearing and approve Ordinance 19-04, an ordinance of the City of Roswell, New Mexico, authorizing and providing for the issuance and sale of its taxable industrial revenue bonds, Series 2019A and Series 2019B, for the benefit of Leprino Foods Company in an aggregate principal amount for each of the series bonds not to exceed $90 million and $60 million respectively, to include the form of the next 3 items that are dated July 9th, 2019. The lease agreement between the City of Roswell and Leprino Foods, including Exhibits A and B. The bond purchase agreement, Series 2019A, including Exhibit A, B, C, and D, and the indenture, including Exhibits A, B, and C.
I have a motion by Counselor Stubbs and a second by Counselor Foster to approve proposed ordinance 1904, a bond ordinance and attendant documentation for the issuance of Leprino Foods Company industrial revenue bonds. Mr. Holloman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council, good evening. This is, as you may remember, last meeting we reviewed the resolution, the inducement resolution to pass the Leprino industrial revenue bond. Tonight, we're asking that you hold the public hearing and vote on whether or not to pass the ordinance finally authorizing the issuance of these industrial revenue bonds. As discussed last time, an industrial revenue bond is a mechanism that the city can provide economic development to a local industry, allowing the legal mechanism. The city takes title and then uses that to the property, uses that title to issue bonds in order to make improvements to that facility. Under this, the council will be authorizing $150 million total in bond sales. This is split between 2 separate bond series, Series A and Series B. This would be anticipated to execute Series A immediately and Series B at a later date. The actual document that you will be taking action on is Ordinance 1904. Ordinance 1904 then makes the approval to execute for the additional documents, the lease, the bond purchase agreement, lease, and then the indenture. I will make a final reference one more time. The documents that you have in front of you are the most recent version of those documents. Changes had been made as late as Wednesday by virtue of the fact that on Tuesday, the school board held a meeting to accept the proposal for the pilot agreement. That language is contained within the lease. If you look at page 19 of the version of the lease, at the top of the page, it should say for item number 4, lease agreement. And that will give you what the school district has agreed for the pilot and what the county has agreed to for the pilot. With that, as with last meeting, Mike Reedy is here to speak on behalf of Leprino, if any of you have any questions of him. Additionally, Peter Kelton of the Rohde firm, who's the attorney, New Mexico attorney assisting them in this process, if you have any questions as to the specifics or the legality of this agreement. And with that, I would stand for any questions.
This is a public hearing, and as such, we will solicit input from the public. Even if you have not signed up to speak on this matter, you may do so at this time. If there's anyone here wishing to speak in opposition of proposed 1904, the issuance of a industrial bond series for this matter, please come forward. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Let the record reflect that no one chose to speak in opposition. Is there anyone here wishing to speak in support of the issuance of this bond series? Let the record reflect no one chose to speak in support. Is there anyone here wishing to speak on this matter in any way, shape, or form? Let the record reflect no one chose to come forward to speak on this matter. Counselors, I will turn to you. Anyone having questions or concerns or discussion on this matter? Counselor Stubbs.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, I have appreciated the time that I've worked with the Leprino people and their representation that are here, taking the time to come down here tonight, so I appreciate that. I just want for Mr. Nebb, if you don't mind, to I don't know that you have to read it, but to tell us what you've received from the Leprino folks, because there's been some question, Mr. Mayor, about their intent in this regard.
Certainly. There was, during the course of the negotiations and the conversation, the question came up as to how does Leprino manage community support, engagement, and initiatives within our community. That question was asked of Leprino, and I have received the letter stating in detail exactly their extensive support of our community and what they are trying to do. I'll just read one sentence in this, and then I can share some of the things that they have been involved in. But one of Leprino Foods' 4 core values is ethics, and embedded in ethics is our longstanding belief in and support of the communities where our people live and work. Roswell is no exception. Over the course of just the last year, they have 2 sources that they utilize in order to provide that support, and it aggregated to roughly $75,000 for just this last year. I have a listing of about 29 different entities that they are providing that support, that community support to. Of course, one of the big ones is Chili Cheese Festival. They are the cheese of the festival. I'm just reading that there. The Joy Center, Boys and Girls Club, the Big Brothers Big Sisters, Toys for Tots, Salvation Army, the Down Syndrome, NIMI, Homes for Heroes, Chamber of Commerce. I'll see if they're Wounded Warriors, and the list goes on and on. So I believe that you'll note that their involvement, their community support is extensive for the groups that they are trying to help. So I believe that they have responded to that question, and I think they responded appropriately. Okay, thank you.
Counselor, okay. I have Counselor Oropesa. Counselor, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe that Leprino Foods has been around for quite a while. And if you belong to this community, have belonged to this community for as long as they've been around, you will have noticed all the support that they have given to this community. You know, the fact that, and the most important part of Leprino, in my opinion, is the jobs that they provide, the good jobs that they provide for this community. So, you know, in my opinion, I don't think we should have even asked to ask them to justify how they would support this community, because just the jobs itself is quite a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. I have no one else on my list wishing to speak. Unless there's someone up. Counselor Foster, go ahead.
I just wanted to agree with Councilor Oropesa that even the asking is, I mean, we should be connected enough with the community that we know what they're doing, and we do know that they're entrenched. I mean, I do know they provide several scholarships for our graduating seniors to go to college. I know several that have graduated with their engineering degrees and are coming back to work for them, and so they are working with our schools, and I really appreciate them coming forward with the pilot for the schools. They didn't have to, but it is nice that they are doing it and working with our schools to make a difference in our education of our kids and our community. So we do appreciate Leprino being here, and the jobs that they provide just make many of our constituents and citizens able to do things that they wouldn't be able to do because they are here. So we are appreciative of them. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Counselor. Anyone else wishing to speak on this matter? If not, I will ask for a roll call vote. A yes or aye approves Ordinance 1904, which is the issuance of industrial revenue bonds for Leprino Foods. A no or nay rejects 1904. Ms. Call, please call the roll.
Counselor Oropesa?
Yes.
Counselor Foster?
Yes.
Counselor Robeck?
Yes.
Counselor Best?
Yes.
Counselor Moore? Yes. Counselor Peterson?
Yes.
Counselor Stubbs?
Yes.
Counselor Sanchez?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. All right, items number 5 through 23 on the agenda are considered consent items and were approved as a result of the approval of the agenda, consent items, and minutes. We will now move on to item number 24. Counselor Stubbs.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that council go into a closed session pursuant to NMSA 1978, Chapter 1015 1H2, to discuss limited personnel matters relating to the Roswell Fire Department.
I have a motion by Counselor Stubbs and a second by Counselor Foster to go into closed session. Any discussion or debate? Hearing none, I will ask for a roll call vote by Ms. Call. Ms. Call, please call the roll.
Counselor Oropesa?
Yes.
Counselor Foster?
Yes.
Counselor Robeck?
Yes.
Counselor Best?
Yes.
Counselor Moore? Yes. Counselor Peterson?
Yes.
Yes.
Counselor Stubbs?
Yes.
Counselor Sanchez?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you. I have, by my clock, 6:19. We will convene in the separate room at 6:23 in 4 minutes. We are recessed to go into closed session.
So this is the quality for consent to so we already have the
Counselor Stubbs.
Since you're still here and everything.
All right. It's 6:50 and we are back in session. Counselor Stubbs.
What? Oh, yes, where's Counselor Roebuck? Sorry.
He's gone.
He's gone. He's gone. Mr. Mayor, for the record, the council has come back into open session at 6:50. Thank you. From a closed session pursuant to NMSA 1978, Chapter 1015 1H2, to discuss limited personnel matters relating to the Roswell Fire Department. No action was taken and no vote was cast.
Okay.
Did I forget something?
Mr. Mayor, just for the record, Counselor Moore left the meeting at 6:19 and Counselor Roebuck left at 6:48.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Counselor Stubbs. Ms. Call. Mr. Nebb.
Yes, sir, Mayor, City Council. Just a couple things. We got a couple current events that I wanted to give you updates on. And I'm going to ask Ms. Jennings to come up and cover some of the information off the UFO Festival. And then Mr. Nahar will come up and we'll talk about the recent water main break that has affected our entire city. And then I have a couple just housekeeping items and then we'll be out of here. So.
Good evening. A couple of updates for UFO Festival. We don't have all of the numbers in, but it was a very successful event. As you guys are aware, we did hire a research firm to do a more analytical approach of our numbers as well as an economic impact. But we do have numbers for visitation in the visitor center, so actual people who came in and signed in. Day one was down just a little bit, but we made up for it in day 2 and day 3. We had a total gain of 10% more visitations to the visitor center in the 3 days of the festival. In 2018, we had 3,454. This year, we had 3,876 total. So a big difference from 2017 as they were in the convention center at that time. I also have an update from the UFO Museum. They also had a gain this year. They were up 19% from last year with visitation. They had close to 10,886 total paid admissions over the 3 days. I do not have Main Street Roswell's updates yet. As you guys are aware, Miss Lay is taking care of some family business, but as soon as we have that, I'll have a full report to share with you guys. Any questions?
Any questions for Ms. Jennings? All right. Thank you. It was awesome.
Thanks.
All right. Mr. Nahar.
I'll handle my housekeeping item very quickly while they're getting set up there. Next Tuesday, we're going to hold a special council meeting here starting at 5 o'clock. It'll be in this room here. We won't be using the dais, we'll be using tables. It is to assist with getting the projects prepared for 2020. And hopefully we'll have a conversation a little bit later on for running out that project list a little bit farther. Because we have another meeting coming up in August to handle the ICIP and some other natures on those on the project list. Okay. But those are my housekeeping items, and then Mr. Nahar on the this main break. So.
All right.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just to give you an update on the main break that's happening on Garden. Next slide. As you can see, that big L-shaped structure is the old Edgewood School. And there to the upper left, the blue star, that's where the break occurred. Now that break occurred as part of the project, The break wasn't part of the project, but the termini is. We were already getting ready to put line stops on both sides of the Blue Star, and the contractor was just exposing the pipe in preparation. It was wet. They got the shovel, they moved some dirt, and it ripped. The guys had to get out of the hole in a hurry, and then the other holes that they were digging for the line stops. So that happened. They were pumping water, and they were still pumping water today. The line stop on the north side of the Blue is in, and we'll put the line stop on the south side of the Blue tomorrow. This is actually a fortunate break, because if you remember when we have breaks in McGaffey and we have other breaks, it takes us about 3 weeks to get materials and get a contractor over here. That contractor was already here. So one line stop already in. I show you the red triangle because that red triangle is Apple Street. And those people, for whatever reason, the geometry of the system, up until today, many of them did not have water, and now the only one that doesn't have it is the very left corner right behind the school. That's 610 Apple Street, and we've turned some valves and opened some water. Everybody else has some water except that lady that lives there. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna hook her up to a hydrant and give her temporary water using a water hydrant and a water hose. The guys would have had that done earlier, but we do have main breaks, and they had to go take care of Church's Chicken first and get that commercial place going. We have had main breaks as a result of this main break. Next slide, please. If you can see that, the blue lines are the 36-inch lines that kind of tie into each other. And basically what you have on the east blue line, which is the 36-inch on Garden, you have a break in the middle, so it's not connecting to the north or to the south. So then you have the other west line, which would be Sunset, Montana. It basically goes from Gale, where we had the problems earlier this year. It goes through McGaffey, where we had problems earlier this year. And it ties into the 48-inch water line coming in out of the reservoirs, the twin reservoirs. So those are the main feeders, how they connect. We have other feeders coming around, but you can see you have another feeder coming in from central control there by the base. The base was able to maintain pressures all the time. So they are connected, and you take one leg out, that's what happens. So, I mean, internally, we're trying to review all the procedures. We got the guys trying to make sure all valves are open. I will say that for central control, water maintenance, transmission, and engineering, all hands are on deck, and all hands are cooperating and helping each other the best we can. And I stand for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Nahar. Councilor Foster.
Well, you answered most of my question here, because the break happened because we were working on the line. We took the dirt away and allowed, I mean, otherwise it may have waited till we did it 10 months later or whenever.
Well, it was part of the project, Counselor.
Right.
And I feel fortunate, because if we didn't have this project and it was just there, it would have ruptured with no project, no people. We'd be doing emergency procurement to get these guys out here waiting on parts. Parts were here, contractors were here. We were already digging the holes and welding the connections.
So, right. So that's, I mean, and it did it working with it, and probably because we were on it. But my biggest concern at the time was that we had delayed this project, correct, to fund the asbestos pipe removal going out to the water treatment?
Negative. They were both going and designed at the same time, and they were both let within a month of each other.
Well, if I remember right, you came before us and we had an emergency funding that we had to delay Edgewood so that we could get funds to put in for the abatement plan.
Yeah, If I can add a little bit to that too. That was our initial intent when that happened, but I know in our conversation at that time as well too, it's like, let us go back and see if we can get both projects to go at the same time, and we were able to find a way to keep the Edgewood project moving along with the asbestos water line, because it took a while to get the asbestos water line designed and done as well too. So they actually came a lot closer than we were thinking that the delay for this project would have been next year when we first started talking about it, I believe. Is that correct?
That is correct. And then the Edgewood project, we were thinking was going to be $3 million. It came in at 1.6, but they were both in design and construction. In fact, the asbestos water line hasn't even started yet. The Edgewood was bid first and went into construction first.
Well, and that's what was my concern, because when it first came to us, we were having to make a decision to put Edgewood on hold to get the other going. And what I was scared was that, yes, we put it on hold, yet now we're still on Edgewood before the other one. So, but I'm glad that it found a way to get both
No,
of them
the
done.
large diameter valves are a priority.
You're right. Well, and that's why when it was more my priority to get Edgewood done before we did the other one. But I'm glad that it wasn't a delay. But thank you.
All right, thank you, Counselor. Anyone else wish comments or questions on this matter? If not, thank you, Mr. Nahar.
Thank you, Councilor.
I do have one individual signed up for public comment. I believe the name is Connolly. Connolly? All right. Thank you. All right. Having no other comments or questions, unless there's anything from anyone else on the council, my time is 7:02. We are adjourned.